Hello and welcome. My name is Natalie Arriola, and today I will be creating an image inspired by famous fashion photographer Irving Penn. Penn is an extremely well-known and well-regarded photographer. His work was mostly in the fashion industry, shooting images for magazines such as Harper's Bazaar and Vogue. Penn was very humble about his work and quite comfortable in his position within the advertising world. At a MoMA symposium in 1950, Penn said this: "The modern photographer is very conscious of the time element in the viewing of his work. He knows that his communication must be made quickly. He knows that his picture may as often be seen hurriedly in a dentist's waiting room as in a soft chair after dinner. In consideration of this time element, the modern photographer has learned the economy of means of the graphic artist." We definitely find this graphic quality in much of Penn's work. And while it is commonly considered important to create photographic compositions which include only that which is absolutely necessary in the frame, Penn takes this to a new level in suggesting that most viewers are too busy or preoccupied to give images a serious viewing. This is certainly something which has become even more prevalent in today's image-saturated online world. But does practicing economy of means also require the sacrifice of creative vision? Let's find out in this week's episode of Natalie Arriola is Murdering the Classics. One of the things I like about Irving Penn is that his images change quite a bit. He isn't always just doing the exact same thing. He definitely has a distinguishable artistic voice, but he's playing around and trying new things and not afraid to throw something unexpected into the mix. There's his fashion photography, which is the ultimate representation of his attempt to stop the viewer in their tracks. These images are carefully arranged to create something visually irresistible. Compare these with his still life images and we see two very different sides of Penn. Yet the basic focus on graphic imagery which immediately pulls the viewer in remains. Even in his flower studies, we find a hard and sterile exploration of form that almost forgets the nature of the subject itself. Then we have his travel photographs. These are a definite departure from the clean and orderly world of his fashion imagery. Yet we are still within the controlled environment of the photography studio. In his artist and celebrity portraits, we're more or less back to the fashion photographs, with their highly stylized posing and wardrobe serving to represent an idolized vision of a particular lifestyle. For today's shoot, I'm going to be creating two images. In the first image, I'll be attempting to emulate Penn's artist portraits, using images of Truman Capote and Jean Cocteau as my guide. In these shots, the graphic quality of Penn's work comes through subtly, by way of careful posing, lighting, and wardrobe placement. The second image will be my take on Penn's portrait of Japanese fashion designer Issey Miyake. For me, this image is an example of Penn at his finest. The Miyake portrait is pure artistry, likely fueled by the wonderful collaboration between Penn and his subject. In my shot, I'll be attempting to replicate his lighting, as well as the graphic and structural quality of this striking image. These two images will be quite different. The Miyake image is a bit surreal and abstract in its use of light and form. The Capote and Cocteau portraits are more straightforward, sticking to simple gesture and the inclusion of personal effects to build their graphic drama. Both styles are quite effective, though in very different ways. We have our lighting set up and we are ready to take our artist shot. We've decided to go with basically replicating the Jean Cocteau portrait because I just really love that portrait. I think the pose in it is amazing, and just the graphic quality of the image overall, which is also due to the suit that he's wearing. So I have my lovely model Patrick here dressed in a very nice suit so that we can do our own take on the Jean Cocteau image. Now for the lighting, this image does have some serious lighting in it because Irving Penn was definitely interested in lighting and he was very precise with that. So if you look at the Jean Cocteau portrait, you'll see that what we have there is a short lighting. So essentially what that means is that the shadow side of the face is facing the camera. And it's almost like a split lighting. The entire half of the face that's facing the camera is almost totally in shadow. Not quite, but pretty close. So ours isn't going to be quite a split lighting, maybe something more like a Rembrandt or a loupe, but it will definitely be a short lighting. And I'm using my main light off to the right side of the frame over here and to Patrick's right side for that. And then on this side, I have a fill light. So this is just to fill in the shadows and make sure that we can see the details in the clothing, since that is a very important part of what creates the graphic quality in this image. So I think we're ready to go. I already have my settings. I may need to adjust them a little bit, but what I have them at right now is f5.6, ISO 800, and 1/80th of a second. So we're gonna go with that to start. And we'll just get Patrick posed and take some shots here. So are you ready?
I believe I am ready.
Okay, so go ahead and pop your knee up there. There you go. Pretzel yourself. It's a very pretzel pose we have here.
Is that me up front?
That's pretty good. Will you drop your, here, bring it a little closer there. There we go. You can kind of do that. And then hand on the hip, and we will get this draped over your shoulders. So in the Cocteau portrait, his jacket is just kind of draped over his shoulders, so we're kind of mimicking that here. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna get over here and try to take some shots before Patrick kills me. Okay, so yeah, look that direction, and that's actually perfect right there. Just hold that. And I'm just gonna check really quick, make sure I've got a good exposure here. And I would say that yes, we do. Okay, here we go. Great, so why don't you turn your head even a little further that way? There we go, perfect. And just with just your eyes, look kind of towards the corner over here. There we go, perfect, that is perfect. Let's get in a little closer here. Okay, just a couple more. So turn your head back towards me a little bit. Right there, that's perfect. That is totally perfect. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think these are looking really, really cool. And I'm very excited about this. So you can relax, Patrick. And I think we are ready to move on to our second shoot. We have switched our setup and we are ready to do our Miyake inspired portrait. Now for this one, I don't have anything that's quite the same as whatever it is that Miyake is wearing in that portrait. I'm not sure if it's one of his fashion designs, but it has a very structural sort of quality to it. So what we're going to do instead is use a wide brimmed hat. So this will kind of fall in line with more of the fashion style of the first image that we shot. So that'll work for our Irving Penn shoot. And this will make for something that will create a sort of structure that can cast a really cool shadow on Patrick's face. So I'm gonna have him put that on. And then we are also going to have him put on his pea coat. So we're gonna get kind of a noirish vibe going on here. And for the lighting, I have just a single lighting source set up just to this side of the frame, and it is just a bare bulb. So I want a nice hard lighting for this image because I really want to see those carved out shadows to create a lot of shape and that graphic quality that we're going for. So I think we're ready to go. I've put my V flats behind Patrick, and those are basically just going to serve as a backdrop for this. And that's it. Very, very simple setup. I do have a light on me currently that I'm going to shut off because right now it's filling in the shadows on Patrick and I don't really want that. So I'm going to turn that off here in a second. Let me just grab my camera and I will tell you what my settings are for this. So I'm at f8, ISO 800 and 1/125th of a second. So are you ready to go?
Ready if you are.
Okay, let me go ahead and shut this off. And this is a very simple image and I have a pretty precise idea of what I want. So we don't even really need to take that many shots. We should be able to get it pretty quickly here. So I think you're good where you are. Okay, and that looks really cool. So I'm just gonna kind of move around and get some different angles here. I think I'm mainly liking this sort of close-up landscape shot for this one. Let's have you turn your head a little bit back towards me. Perfect, right there. And why don't you look off camera for this one? Perfect, all right. Right there, that's good. There we go. Okay, and now let's turn your head back towards the light a bit. Right there. A little bit back towards me. Perfect, right there. Stop. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly it. Looks great. And you get a couple of different shots here. So I'm kind of moving in closer and then stepping back. And I think we probably already have this. This is just like a super, super simple one. And they just look so cool with that really, really dramatic lighting. So I think we definitely have our shot. And now it's time to take these into Photoshop and see how we did. This was a super fun shoot and it really had that feeling of play that I think is so important to artistic exploration. Before we view the results of the shoot, I want to take a look at more of Penn's statement in regard to the modern photographer. The modern photographer does not think of photography as an art form or of his photograph as an art object. But every so often in this medium, as in any creative medium, some of the practitioners are artists. In modern photography, that which is art is so as the byproduct of a serious and useful job soundly and lovingly done. Penn was hyper aware of the fact that as a photographer for hire, he was delivering an image that was not necessarily about the nature of its subject, nor even the artistry of the image maker, but rather about enticing the viewer. This is probably why a great deal of advertising and fashion photography images have a cold and detached feeling, including some of Penn's own. If this is true, is it possible for a fashion image to transcend the blatant intention of selling a product and become a piece of art in and of itself? Let's take a look at the results of our shoot as we attempt to draw some conclusions. I'm very pleased with the Penn-inspired images we created. These images weren't created with any particular purpose in mind, aside from exploring the techniques Irving Penn used so masterfully in his iconic work. Still, I feel that there is artistry in them, and not only that inherited from Penn, but something of my own too. For me, Penn's images are often a push and pull between satisfying an advertising objective and allowing a bolder, more artistically attuned vision to come through. Regardless of what Penn may have said publicly of his relationship to the advertising world, I sense an inner conflict between the artist and the paid practitioner throughout Penn's portfolio. Perhaps this is an explanation for the stylistic variations which appear so frequently throughout his career. But this inner conflict is a part of what made Penn the photographer he was. And rather than taking away from his artistry, the limitations he was met with as a photographer for hire required him to stretch his creative resources and make innovative choices he may never have even considered if he'd been left to his own devices. Not just any photographer could have pulled this off. All one needs to do is glance at the standard advertising fare found in countless magazines, billboards, commercials, and so on to recognize the rarity of a photographer with true vision. Was Penn precisely the artist as hired gun he himself spoke of? I'll leave it up to you to decide. Thank you for joining me in this exploration, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss out on future episodes of Natalie Arriola is Murdering the Classics.